We are live. Hello, hello, hello. If you're here already, hello. If you're not, then I can't say hello to you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's afternoon now, isn't it?
I'm here, Rich, if that's any consolation.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for joining me.
If
If you want to say hello in the chat, obviously go and do that. If you've got any questions for yourself, then you go and do that.
I'll fill that chat box.
Yeah. Well, at least some of us could do multitasking, because I cannot.
Wow.
I even struggle to read the questions whilst trying to listen to you. So if you can write it and listen to you at the same time, then I'd be even more impressed.
Multi-talented.
You are multi-talented. I give you that, Shaun. Hey, look, it's the first day. It's a Monday, basically, isn't it? So I hope everybody's in and kind of listening. Although I know a lot of people do emails on a Monday. I say it's a Monday. Well, it's a 4-day week, so basically a Monday.
It's a short week.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. So it gets to Thursday and everyone panics because they've only got one day.
Yeah.
Left to do everything. But...
Yeah, or they get to Friday and go, oh crap, I haven't got the extra day I needed.
Exactly. So end up working Saturday anyway and lose the 4-day week.
Yeah. Well, some of us had to do a little bit of work yesterday, so it wasn't too bad.
Oh well. It's tough at the top, isn't it? It's tough at the top.
Yeah, it's like it's not too bad though. It's working with people, right? So there's not too much paperwork involved.
Good. That's what we like to hear.
Where are we? There's a time. Oh, look. 90 seconds goes like that when you're having fun.
There you go.
So we'll get started. If you are here watching us ramble along, please say hello so we know we're talking to some people. And if you don't, then that's fine. You can listen. We won't judge you. We'll just continue talking and sharing all this fantastic knowledge. But before, as you said, the title is Motivating People in Your Teams. I've got my friend Shaun here, who is L&D and has a wealth of knowledge around engagement, motivation, people. And I think between both of us, we're going to have some pretty good insights into how we get the best out of ourselves, our people, and our teams. And so I really look forward to having this conversation and sharing all that information for you. But before we start, let me just quickly introduce myself. If you don't know who I am, my name's Rich. I am the founder of Employees Health. I'm a high-performance coach and wellbeing coach, helping individuals, teams, and organizations improve their wellbeing and their performance for sustained success, either through coaching or through training programs, kind of leading them into the habits and behaviors they need to do and take to achieve that. If you want to know more, just drop me a line. Way easier to have a conversation than me trying to set it on a sentence. That's out of the way. Shaun, hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Best way to do this, can you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, cool.
You'll do that better than I will, and you won't butcher it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm Shaun Beck, at the helm of Inspire Ignite, coaching and leadership. So similar to yourself, work with individuals on a one-to-one basis, different teams, so helping teams gel, work through the dynamics of what they're working on, overcome some challenges, and organizations from a culture, strategy, performance perspective. Have been at the helm of Inspire Ignite for just over 8 years. Prior to that, about 16, 17 years in the corporate world, learning development manager, head of learning and development in organizations like Hotel Chocolat, Caterpillar, the Environment Agency, little stint at Ted Baker too. So yeah, real mix of industries, real mix of sectors. So yeah, bringing some of those different experiences and those different experiences now to Inspire Ignite, working with another variety of different organizations too.
Yeah, awesome. I actually didn't know that part of you. I just know you for you and know what you do now. I didn't know that you'd been head of learning development in some of these cool places. And so, leading on from that, you think I would do more due diligence on these podcasts, but with my friends,
just off the street, Rich. It feels like you've just
pulled
me in.
I just say if I say you're my friend enough, people will believe it, and so it doesn't matter too much. Align with that. Can you just share a little bit about your story and a little bit about your journey? Just I feel like it builds kind of leadership.
Well, I kind of started in my world of work, if you like, when I first left school. Left school at 16, trained to be a chef. So did a bit of chefing for a good few years. Kind of worked my way up the ranks through kind of the hospitality world. Became catering manager over the longer period of time, and I guess really kind of that's where the learning and development, I guess the bug started to hit me. I was kind of training people in health and safety, food hygiene. I was an NVQ assessor at that time as well. So kind of got more and more involved in the training, the learning and development, and kind of the people side latter stage of my hospitality career. Then because I was starting to enjoy that training, development, people element, left hospitality as an industry and became an NVQ assessor full time. So I was going into different organizations, assessing people through their food prep and cooking, quick service, hospitality, front of house, and all that kind of stuff, because it was my background. I was training other people in those areas. Kind of that took me on the next stage of the journey to working with people, learning and development. Long story short, then went to work for management development consultancy in Birmingham. I live in Peterborough. Commuted to Birmingham 5 days a week, which was lovely. Didn't think anything of it at the time, but the thought of doing that now is horrific. Great opportunity, because they were delivering not only the hospitality, the customer service stuff, but they were also delivering team leader, management, those sorts of CMI, ILM sorts of qualifications and training programs. So because of my background in hospitality management, became more and more involved in that. That's where I started to kind of get the bug for a bit of facilitation, standing up in the front of a room of people, kind of delivering learning and development solutions to them to help them to achieve their qualifications. And then decided actually the trip to Birmingham was a little bit too much 5 days a week. So that's when I kind of ventured a bit more into the more aligned corporate world. Did a stint at the Environment Agency. And really my goal there, my task there was to turn learning and development from kind of admin function, the people that went off and looked and sourced training programs, to being a little bit more business partnering in its approach. So working with the teams, the functions and the departments to kind of bring learning and development to life for them. Then moved on to Caterpillar, where I had the very glamorous title of Master Facilitator. Very, very glamorous, very glamorous. So it was all over Europe, delivering things like presentation skills, situational leadership, bit of time in Poland, bit of time in Paris, bit of time in Hungary. So yeah, kind of got to travel a little bit and deliver lots of training programs across the globe. And then yeah, later kind of stage of my career, Hotel Chocolat, learning and development manager for them. Did a little stint at Ted Baker. Couple of interim gigs after that, and thought, oh, quite like this dip in, dip out kind of approach to work. And then thought, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it proper. I'm going to do it properly. So after a couple of those interim gigs, decided I was going to set up Inspire Ignite. And yeah, that was nearly 8.5 years ago. So yeah, it's been a weird old journey, but a good one.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. It seems like quite the journey, and probably learned quite a lot along the way. Different industries, I always think, teach you a lot of different things, especially within different roles within those industries. We're going from kind of hospitality, then into kind of retail. I think it leads really nicely into kind of motivation and how actually you get teams to motivate and engage with what you're trying to teach and do, and get them on the journey you're trying to go on as a company.
Yeah, and I think also it's actually, people think, oh, their organization is unique and the challenges that they face around leadership, managing teams, getting teams to work together more effectively. I think some organizations are a little bit hard on themselves, thinking it's like, oh, we're not very good at it. We're not very good at it. Well, you pretty much have the same challenges as exactly every other organization out there. So yeah, it's consistently the same messaging. It's consistently the same challenges that a variety of different organizations face. So yeah, it's consistent across the board as well.
Yeah, love that. Okay, let's get into this. Let's talk about motivation. What does that mean to you when we say that? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, and I think organisations kind of get hung up a little bit on definitions, don't they? And I was kind of, as I was kind of scribbling a few little notes ahead of this little session, I kind of wrote the word engagement down. And I think probably in today's world, engagement is probably a more recognised term maybe than motivation. I mean, we think back to motivation. If you kind of do your googling of all your motivational models, your classic Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all that kind of stuff, all very interesting, but probably isn't going to necessarily translate as language into different organizations. So yeah, I kind of tend to veer a little bit more towards the term of engagement. So, engagement is there. Why do organizations spend an absolute fortune, which is often wasted, by the way, on engagement surveys? Because actually they're trying to get a percentage measure. They're trying to get that number because it's recognized that engagement is the thing that when you do your survey, it kind of measures how motivated people are. So it's very much around, if we've got a motivated, energized and engaged workforce, based on all of the research that's been conducted across a variety of different research bodies, the more motivated and engaged our teams are, the better the level of performance. So there is that known connection between motivation, engagement being high. That then means that performance is far more likely to be pretty high as well. So from a business perspective, from an organizational perspective, obviously there are benefits to your people being motivated, energized and engaged too.
100%. Okay, now what about now from an individual standpoint? What does it mean? What does motivation mean to you as Shaun Beck?
Yeah, and I think that's the connection. I think that's the connection between, do you know what? I know my strengths. I know my vibe. I know what I need to feel energized and infused. Am I getting that from the role, the team, the organization that I'm in? And I can think back to, times that when I've had proper jobs, when I've been in teams and organizations and it's felt like, do you know what? I'm in my element here. I'm doing my best work. For me, it was, you got a blank sheet of paper, go and talk to people, find out what they want, find out what they need, make those connections, build those relationships and get stuff done. They're the environments when I've been at my best. When I also think about some of the environments, when I've had to submit a paper to directors, before it can go to directors, it goes to my line manager, then it goes to my line manager's line manager, it comes back circled in red pen, change this language, change this word. It's like, oh my goodness, the level of bureaucracy in some organizations works for many. That doesn't motivate or energize me. So I think it's about finding the connection, it's finding the team and the organizational fit for me, what I love, what I enjoy, and what kind of gives me a little bit of passion to go out there and do my best work.
Yeah, and I think that leads really nicely into kind of strengths, doesn't it? It leads really nicely into, if you play to your strengths, you're more likely going to be motivated to do the things and the tasks that require and need and require motivation. Yeah. Or sorry, need less motivation than the tasks that maybe don't lead to those. Like, you need to be motivated more to do admin and to do my accounts than I do to talk to somebody and to create and do a workshop or delivery. So it's that understanding of, if you put more strengths in place, and obviously we'll talk about this later on, as an organization, let people play to their strengths, they're going to be more engaged, motivated and energized to do those tasks.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes on that, Rich, organizations, through positive intent, they do their one-to-ones or they have their performance conversations or whatever it looks like in your organization. And a lot of the time they focus on maybe what people aren't very good at and trying to improve it. So, you're not very good at presenting to a group of 50 people. Let's put some development in place to help you to do that. Well, do you know what? If that isn't my strength, that is never going to motivate me. That isn't going to energize me. In effect, by setting me that goal and that objective, you are actively demotivating me to do a great job, because I'm having to stretch all the time. I'm having to do stuff that I'm naturally not very good at. From an organization perspective, you're making it hard work. I'm probably never going to be that great at it. From a personal perspective, my motivation and my energy is massively dipping, I'm just never going to give my best in that particular goal or task. So focusing on the strengths piece is absolutely one of the key strategies, I think, to keeping people motivated.
Yeah, 100%. And I always reflect whenever we talk about strengths, or whenever I talk about strengths, the conversation I had with my coaching mentor about kind of strengths, and it talks about you are a boat. Your strengths will drive you and sail you forward. But if you don't recognize and kind of recognize your weakness and weaknesses, they're the things which are going to sink you. Yeah. So actually understand those, understand what they are, so they don't kind of raise their head at any point, but really lean into those strengths. And when I think about weaknesses as well, and you said companies not focusing on those or kind of having to change them. I think that's a really good point, actually. There's going to be people in your team who will actually use those weaknesses you have as strengths and see those as strengths to actually go, okay, well, if for example, me and you both probably don't like accountancy and doing the admin bit, right? We're people. We like being in front of people and talking. Well, if there's somebody who actually doesn't like that, but they like the stuff we don't, why would you put them in front of people? Allow me and you to go and do that. And if your job requires a lot of the things you don't enjoy, then you're probably in the wrong job.
Yeah, and also that's the team motivation and the team dynamics bit. So there are probably people in a team. If you've got a fairly diverse team, which a lot of people are or have. It's about actually getting really comfortable with that language around strength. So, you may not be great at presenting. I'm not bad at presenting. Oh, do you know what? If the team needs to present, I'll do that. Yeah. Actually, there might be something else that you're much better at than me. Oh, well, why don't you do that? And I think sometimes we get a bit hung up with, oh, but that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. It's not evenly spread. Well, if people are playing to their strengths, actually, it's really fair because I'm doing all the stuff that I love and motivates me and energizes me. Okay, it's not split task by task perfectly evenly, but sometimes that's where we get kind of a bit embroiled. It needs to be fair. It needs to be consistent. Yeah. Knowing your team and playing to the team's strengths is where you start to get the very best level of performance.
Yeah, and it's team success over individual success.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take a step back quickly. So we spoke about quite a lot in regards to kind of creating or how we become motivated and the things we can do to become motivated. But let's say we have a task or an area maybe which we maybe don't have that motivation for. How do we then motivate ourselves, and what do we have to do to create that motivation to get that task done?
Well, I think number one, it's about self-awareness. So a lot of people that I talk to, particularly on a one-to-one coaching basis, can't necessarily easily articulate what it is that motivates them and what it is that isn't. So I think number one is getting really aware and becoming really comfortable with where your strengths are, where you're not quite so naturally energized and not quite so naturally motivated. And I think for me, just having that knowledge and that awareness. So, you use the example of, accounts. For me, it's everyone, people around me often laugh at me because it's like you put a spreadsheet in front of me and I've probably lost interest after reading 3 cells. But for me, having that knowledge and that awareness of this isn't a natural motivator for me. I need to do this at a time when I'm at my best. So for me, I'm an early bird. I'm in the office about 7:30, 8 o'clock most mornings. That is when I'm at my best. That's when I've got the most attention and the most focus. You've probably heard the phrase, eat the frog. Do the thing on the list that actually is probably going to be the most painful and the most difficult. For me, that's anything that's maybe data or spreadsheet related. That's where I'm probably going to do it at my very best, get it done the quickest I can do it, and then also have that little bit of a motivator to say, once this is done, it's done, and I can move on to maybe some of the sexier stuff. So I think it's about having that awareness, what you're really good at, what you're not quite so good at, and then making sure you're really considering when you're doing those tasks and how you're doing them.
Yeah.
If you're in a position to give it to someone else to do, delegate it.
Yeah. Completely agree. That's a completely different topic though. And I think I think I love this "eat the frog" phrase, and I have heard it before, but maybe I've not focused on it too much until then. Just thinking about how I use it as motivation. But I've always been a exercise person, like especially when I started my business. I did exercise in the afternoon after work, but I think it's because it's something which I was always going to do. Whereas I've done my admin and been on the computer early doors because they're the things I kind of need to get done. And potentially, if I get to the gym first, I might lose that afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think it's something subconsciously I've done because I wanted to be focused and do my best work on the stuff maybe which I'm not as great as or at, and the things I need to do first. And so I love that kind of example of actually doing the hard things first.
Yeah. I think maybe the other thing to challenge yourselves on as well is the whole learned behaviors thing. Mm-hmm. So I talk to a lot of people and kind of I use like a little strengths tool with some of my coaching clients and some of the team sessions that I deliver. And there is a section on there on learned behaviors, and often, stuff comes out in this learned behaviors section that, do you know what? I've just learned to do it well. It doesn't energize me. It doesn't motivate me. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't thrill me. But I've programmed it somewhere, somehow, super deep in my brain that I'm going to do it and I'm going to be really good at. And what's really interesting and is an example that often comes up in that learned behavior section is work ethic. Mm-hmm. So people have this internal driver that they have to be showing and demonstrating that they are working hard, doing really good stuff. They have to be logged on at 8 in the morning until 7 at night to show work ethic. And actually, it's a self-made thing. It's a learned behavior. Well, I'm doing that to show that how hard I'm working. In reality, you can probably do and achieve everything that you need to do from 10 till 3:30. But that work ethic, that learned behavior, I have to be showing that I'm doing stuff, becomes almost a little bit of a false motivator. I'm doing it because I've kind of learned to do it and I've never become aware of it. Much more than actually, this proper energizes me, this proper motivates me. So I think sometimes we kind of just have to give ourselves a little bit of a slap and say, is that actually adding value to what motivates me? Or is that just something that I've talked myself into, or I've seen people do, or I've learned to do it from others? And actually, in reality, it isn't important and it doesn't motivate or energize me.
Yeah. I've got a question for you then on that. At what point did you switch out of that? Because I still definitely have that mindset sometimes. I have to get up a certain time. And I'm not an early bird. I'm not one of these crazy people who says I have to be up by 5, although I'm working from home and go for an ice bath and work on that. Don't buy into that. But it's, if I'm not up, even if I want to get good enough sleep in, if I'm up by 8 o'clock, I'm like, this is still pretty late. This is a lay-in. Then actually I should be up maybe at 7 where I'm making the most of that time. But is that element as a self-employed person, how did you fight that off, or how do you fight that off?
Oh, I remember, those first few months when basically I just set up my business. I had very little work, and yes, you're doing and I think it's social media as well. A lot of social media, you have to work hard. You have to be grinding all the time. Who needs sleep? And, all these social media messages that you kind of see. And actually, I think it's different for everyone. So I think on that journey, opening my laptop at 9 in the morning and not allowing myself to close it until 5, because that's a working day. That's a full working day. So if I've done that, I'm on to a winner. I have no idea what I faffed about with or filled my time with, or how much time I wasted that could have been doing other stuff when I first started out. But I think that's also part of that self-awareness piece. So, over the time of having Inspire Ignite, you talk to any of my team or any of my associates, and I will openly say, and they will openly acknowledge, I'm a last minute person. That's when I do my best work. That's when I'm most motivated. If I've got 15 weeks to prepare for something, I won't do it until at least a week before. And a week is kind of optimistic.
Yeah.
But that's, again, that's getting used to and comfortable with where you do your best work. And sometimes in the corporate world, you've got a leader or a manager that's saying, what's the progress update? What's the progress? Where are we at with this? Where are we at for that? From a personal perspective, you force yourself to do some of that stuff, but you're not delivering your best work. You're just kind of doing it to tick the box so you can give your manager an update. I think for me, I've become really comfortable with, if I have a little bit of last minute pressure, if I've got to deliver a training workshop tomorrow and I've only got today to do it, I'm going to nail it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it done. It's going to be really good. And when I stand up and deliver it tomorrow, it's going to be awesome. If I've written it 6 weeks ago to be very organized and prepared, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to be like, I've forgotten this. It's not fresh because I've not had that kick of energy to make me do it, learn it, and be on top of it. So again, I think that's that individual motivator and getting really comfortable with. It motivates me to work in that way, as long as I'm appreciative that it doesn't work for everyone to work in that way. Might have to give a bit or flex a bit. But kind of, I think from a personal motivating perspective, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I think that leans. I think I've used this phrase a couple of times. Leans into kind of a stress motivator and pressure motivator, and how actually stress is a really positive thing for you when it comes to deadlines. Yeah. But you can create that within yourself and as a team. And I'm jumping forward quite a bit here, but as a team, if you know people are like that and understand your team very well, actually you can set your own deadlines, which are going to motivate your team. So this comes under Parkinson's law. Have you heard of Parkinson's law before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Parkinson's law is, you said, if you're like you just said, if you've got 15 weeks to complete your deadline or finish a deadline, you will spend 15 weeks delivering that deadline or completing that piece of work. But if you set yourself a week, you're going to spend that week delivering that piece of work, and that's Parkinson's law. Where you're only motivated as the time you've got, and you'll complete the work within the time you've got. So you can create motivation through stress and pressure to get things done.
Yeah. And kind of going back to the kind of work environment, if you're a leader, that's very much about getting to know your team members and getting to know their personal motivators and how they like to work, because it's so easy to say, give me a progress update, give me a progress review, how are we doing on this? If you know someone is going to deliver their best work under that little bit of pressure, as long as they're getting it across the line pretty much every time, let them do it. Let them go with working that way. That may feel really uncomfortable for you, but actually, once you've built that trust in who you've got in your team, who you've got around you, you're off and running. You're on to a winner. So yeah, it's quite magic word there, isn't it? Trust. Actually, if we can have that little bit of trust in what motivates and energizes people, that's when we're going to get our best results.
Yeah, and I also feel like, because I'm similar to you, right? I need that little bit of pressure, but you also know what your weeks look like. You know how much work you've got on. So if you have got a deadline, say for example, my deadline would be next Monday, let's say, and I've actually got a really busy week, I'm going to be more motivated to do that piece of work today than I would be to do it on Friday if I had a less busy week. So it's actually, in yourself, if you've got deadlines and you put deadlines in or have a deadline coming, that you'll still get the work done with enough time because you know what work you have in place. My script is now completely out of the water.
Script? Who needs a script?
My question. Where are we, Shaun? So let me just kind of get back to some sort of normality in flow in regards to all of this. Okay, so we've spoken about what motivation is. And how we can create some motivation. You got anything else in regards to kind of task motivation? So I don't know, getting to the gym or doing the hard things. Yeah, have you got anything there how you can create motivation?
Yeah, and I think we're kind of starting to get into the realm of like goals a little bit, aren't we? And kind of that objective setting piece. And I think, from a motivation perspective, when we feel motivated or not motivated to achieve goals, I think it's usually because we set ourselves too big a broader goal. So, we set ourselves the task of going to the gym from once a week to 5 times a week. Well, come on. In reality, how easy is that going to be going from once to 5 times? It's just a massive chasm that we've got to fill. So, if we start off by saying, I'm currently going once, I'm going to make it twice, or then I'm going to make it 3 times. probably it's far more likely to happen because it doesn't feel like quite such a chasm to fill. So probably psychologically, we're going to be a little bit more motivated to achieve. The other thing that I think I've certainly benefited from, and something that probably just over the last couple of years has become a little bit more of an awareness for me, I feel I'm more motivated by setting intentions rather than setting goals. So instead of, oh, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, what is my intention? My intention is to feel a little bit more energized, a little bit healthier, think about what I'm eating a little bit more. And personally, for me, it goes against everything that anyone will ever say. Oh, you got to set a goal. It's got to be smart, specific, measurable, achievable. I actually don't think it has, because I probably achieve more with a focus on intentions and having that in the forefront of my mind than I ever have done if I've set myself a set of rigid, consistent, clearly defined goals. And again, I think that's working about getting to know what personally motivates you. Some people like the framework and the rigidity of a nice, smart goal, all broken down with lots of detail. But again, I think we've got to be careful that we don't just become conditioned with what people tell us motivate us and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I think we've just got to shift that balance. So hold on a minute. This is about me. I'm the one that's going to achieve this. How do I need to be packaging it up? How do I need to be thinking about it for success? So for the task bit, I've kind of found it by being less specific around the task and being a bit more focused on the intention. I feel more motivated, energized, and engaged in, I feel like I'm making progress. I feel like I'm kind of moving things forward.
Yeah, but I think that's really nice in regards to you're focusing on the reward.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of individual motivation, isn't it? Like, you can set goals, but unless you understand what the reward for those goals or the actions towards those goals. So I don't think a goal is, for me, the goal is never to go to the gym. The goal is to lose weight or to build muscle or whatever. That's the goal for me. It's the bigger why. If you can understand what that intention is and understand the impact of those actions you set, and it's the internal part rather than the external response or reward, you're going to get more luck at achieving and completing those tasks, right?
Yeah. And I also think, actually, if you set yourself the task of going to the gym 5 times a week versus the intention of feeling better, feeling more energized, do you know what? Sometimes it might be a trade-off. Or I've just not got the opportunity to fit the gym in on that particular day. Do you know what? Instead of having a burger from the staff restaurant, I'm going to have a salad from the salad bar. And it just starts to offset the pain and the guilt. I haven't been to the gym. But actually, based on my intention, I've probably also had a good result because I've made a better choice. The intention is a bit bigger and a bit broader. I'm thinking bigger and broader, much more than, I'm going to beat myself up because I should have gone to the gym today. That was my task. That was my goal. I haven't done it.
Yeah.
You kind of become a little bit hung up on maybe some of the tasks and lose the focus on why you're trying to do things.
Yeah, and I think, as you said earlier, at the beginning of that was setting like pain goals, and too much of a stretch goal or a pain goal is probably the correct term for it. That it's unlikely to happen, isn't it? Whereas if you go, okay, well, I'm actually in the gym once, maybe my stretch goal could be 2 to 3 times.
Yeah,
and maybe they're not an hour long sessions. Maybe they're shorter sessions, but just as intense. You're still overachieving. And by the end of the year, every day you're 1% better, and over the year you've improved towards your intention or goal of feeling better.
Yeah, and I also think that's super important for leaders to be aware of as well. When you're leading a team of people, yes, the temptation is to go for the task or go for the project or go for the line of the job description that you have to achieve. But actually, by creating more of those intentions. What's the intention here? It's to slicken the process. Let's focus on slickening the process. Yes, I'm sure there's going to be some tasks that fall out of that, but probably you will end up with more creative solutions from your team members on how you can do it. You're probably going above and beyond almost what that original goal was. therefore adding value, therefore building performance as well. So, if you're a leader, those sorts of conversations can make a huge difference to success.
I think that conversation does so many different things in regards to the performance of your team, because it's not only it's allowing your team to have a voice, which I think is important. Your players to have a voice, and I've used players as a term for individuals and employees, to have a voice in how they involve and how they turn up to a challenge, which only creates, which for the majority of people who do that will allow them to use their strengths.
Yeah.
And obviously there's going to be, like, if you say you got a task list of 10 things to do and you've only got 5 or 3 people in a team, there's going to be some tasks there that don't fit into anybody's strengths, and some people are going to, you have to take up the slack somewhere. Yeah. But you're not only using people's, kind of allowing them to choose and work to their strengths, you're also creating a culture where people can be honest and motivated to do the things. They're going to be motivated because they chose what they've done. Yeah. They're going to be engaged, and then because they're using their strength, they're actually doing the best work they can do. So not only it works in so many different elements, and you've created the motivation and engagement through just by having that conversation.
Yeah. And then again, that's part of that team openness as well. So actually, if we're creating that culture and that environment, everybody usually is getting the chance to play to their strengths. Do you know what? If there's something that no one fancies, or it's not something that there's necessarily a lot of people in the team that would enjoy or would be motivated to do, because you're creating that more positive vibe and that more positive culture within the team, people in that team are probably far more likely to say, oh, do you know what? Me and Rich will just take that action. We'll suck it up. We'll get on with it. Guys, can you just give us a bit of breathing space or give us a bit of support with some of the other stuff? We'll take it for the team. We'll nail it. We'll get it done. You're probably far more likely to get those sorts of responses and that sort of team input, because often it's all good, and we're going to take one for the team and we're going to kind of crack on and do it. It may not be top of our motivation list, but we also appreciate, for the good of the team and for the team's performance, we're going to suck it up and crack on with it.
Yeah, I love that. So I think we've covered quite a lot when it comes to both individuals and teams. Is there any other advice or insight you can give in regards to kind of motivating the team as a whole?
Yeah, I just kind of scribbled a few bits down, ahead of this conversation, and something that I think is worth a look is the Gallup 12. If you've not come across the Gallup 12, there's a few extras that have been added with the rise in remote working and on the back of like COVID and stuff like that. But the original Gallup 12 still stands, so it's worth a Google if you haven't come across it before, because that talks about, in essence, almost the building blocks to creating a motivated and engaged team or organization. And that talks about the basics being the basics. So nail the basics first, and then you can do the bigger, better, more sexy and fun stuff, as people often describe it. So the basics are, if people don't know what the expectations of their role are, if they don't know what they're expected to do, if they don't know what they're held accountable for, if they don't know what good looks like for their role, they're just going to go off and they're just going to do what they think is best. So make sure you're giving people that clarity of expectation. And then the other thing is around kit and equipment. So I quite a few years ago now, I would hope it's evolved and I hope it's changed. But just following, people going back to work from kind of COVID or continuing to work remotely, the amount of people that hadn't even got a laptop. And it's like, hold on a minute, how are you expecting people to feel motivated and do good work if you're not providing them with the basic kit and equipment? So people are on old desktops or on their old, laptop. If they haven't got the kit and the equipment and the basic essentials to do their job, they're never going to feel energized and they're never going to feel motivated. So get the basics right. I think the bit that is often forgotten is the feedback and the recognition bit as well. So if you are a leader that wants to motivate, wants to energize, and wants to engage, you've got to deliver really positive recognition where it's due. you've also got to be really honest, build trust, create an environment of people feeling, like that someone is going to be honest with them. So sometimes it feels challenging, sometimes a lot, and I will say a lot of leaders avoid difficult conversations and then complain at the end of the day, because they're not really that motivated, they're not really that engaged. That's because you're not talking to them. That's, you're not giving them positive recognition. You're not giving them constructive feedback. They don't necessarily always know where they stand. So that feedback and that recognition piece is super important. And then I think there's the thing that you mentioned earlier on, kind of you alluded to around, it's often called employee voice. So, and it's often why engagement surveys that are completed in organizations go the opposite way and sometimes demotivate or de-energize people, because we go through asking them 20 questions about how they feel about working here. We just get the percentage and then we do barely anything with the results of what they've told us. So what starts to happen is, we've got this survey again. We've got this questionnaire again. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to go through it as quick as I can because I've got to complete it. They're not going to do anything differently. They're not going to listen to what we say. They're not even going to acknowledge what we've said because it might not paint a great picture in some of those areas. The intention by doing the survey is to see how motivated and engaged people are. If you're not going to do anything with it, you go in the opposite way. You're doing more to demotivate and disengage people because you're asking for their input and their opinions, but you're giving the impression that you don't care.
Yeah, and you're seeing that more and more within organizations, and it ties really well into kind of why the well-being chat conversation, right? It's actually, you want your teams, if you're asking and getting data from your teams, and you have to use that data in as much as you can, or at least share. If you can't do something on that, at least acknowledge it.
Yeah.
We've listened to you. We're going to think about how we can do this.
Or controversially, if you don't want to do anything differently, don't ask the question. So don't ask for input, don't ask for ideas, don't ask for suggestions if there's no intention that you're going to do anything differently as a result.
100%. So you obviously were motivating teams. What's the role of leadership in all of this? And let's talk about like upper leadership, senior leadership.
Yeah. And I think kind of your day-to-day leaders, so your line managers, as often we would call them, your role is to get to know your team. Your role is to get to know the individual strengths, the individual weaknesses, the watch-outs, the learned behaviors, the challenges that any of those individuals in your team face. Equally know, what they're awesome at, what's going to energize and what's going to motivate them. Just by knowing that is where you can start to align your team and pull your team around you to deliver success. Number one, as a kind of line manager and as a day-to-day leader, you've got to have great conversations. So conversations around talent, engagement, performance, positive recognition, difficult, more trickier scenarios that you might have to talk through. But often we rely on one-to-ones or appraisals or, process-led conversations. People just feel like they're having a conversation with their line manager because they've got to do it because it's part of the process. They don't feel real. They don't feel genuine. So as a leader, you've got to bring those conversations to life and make them feel real and genuine. And I think for probably as you go up the chain of command, if you like, in organizations, that's be really aware of the culture that you're creating within your organization. Bit of a sweeping statement and a sweeping generalization, but if you can get a sense of, from an organizational perspective, what's the style, what's the culture, what's the vibe, is it action focused, is it a bit reflective, is it sometimes maybe a little bit wishy-washy and should be a bit quicker to act and respond, you can start to maybe shift some of that thinking. You can start to maybe create an environment or challenge the environment in certain ways, in a positive way, that is going to lift that level of performance a little bit and ultimately, hopefully, mean a bit more success.
Yeah, love that. So I think one of the things, I'm talking about leadership, I think the conversation we had earlier on is in allowing line managers, day-to-day managers, to empower your teams.
Yeah.
To create how they finish tasks and complete tasks and create success, right? As leadership, how do you encourage or allow them to lose that, worry of in that process?
I think sometimes we have to give permission. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a lot of managers and leaders that face a challenge because they don't think they could do something, or they don't think that they should do something, or they've not been able to do it before. And sometimes when I challenge them and say, why do you think that? Who said to you, no, you can't make that decision, or you can't do that? And they'll just kind of look at me. Mm-hmm. No one's ever said that they can't, but they're not doing it because no one has said that they can.
Yeah.
So, if you are kind of higher up in an organization, and, it's you want people to be energized, you don't want people to be chained to their desks, you may need to give permission to say, have you had your break today? Have you had a little walk? It's a lovely day out there. Go and take your 15 minutes, have a little walk around the block. Sometimes people need that permission to do positive stuff. Yeah. We just assume as leaders, that's for people to decide how they do it and how they want to do it. But if you want people to feel motivated, energized, and engaged, sometimes you might have to give them permission. Make that decision. If it comes back and it all goes pear-shaped, I'm trusting you to be able to sort it out, get it done, get it addressed, overcome the challenge. I'm giving you permission to own it, do it, be accountable for it. Sometimes that can be tough as a leader, but that's where the magic starts to happen in the longer term, because you up that level of accountability. Therefore, people feel they're a bit more in control of their own destiny. Therefore, usually feel a little bit more energized and engaged and motivated.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Shaun. I think we've covered quite a lot, but I can't let you go without giving me your top 3 tips. So, what are your top 3 tips to create engagement and motivation within a workplace and individuals?
So I would say number 1 is great conversations. So as leaders, as managers, you need to be having real conversations that deliver real feedback, that are sometimes a little bit tricky, that are sometimes over a coffee and talk about, career aspirations of an individual. Great conversations do not come from, it's May the 7th. We have to have all of our appraisals completed by May the 12th. I'm going to sit down with every individual team member, fill in this form, make sure all the boxes are correctly filled in. That isn't a great conversation. That's just somebody thinking that as a leader, you're just following a process that you've got to follow a process for.
I love that.
Have the conversation and then reference it about, against the form. What's in those forms. Be led by the conversation, not by the document or the form. You can fill that in later.
I'm just going to plug quickly, Shaun. Plug people listening. If you haven't heard already, the Kate Hyam podcast there's a bit in there about leadership responsibilities, and that setting 6-month performance reviews, but then having weekly catch-ups, monthly goal settings, and all that piece. And I think it ties really nicely into what you're just saying.
And more organizations that are kind of waking up to this, that, there's very little, if any, evidence that, having an appraisal to talk about someone's performance, future goals and future aspirations at a 6-monthly point and summarized at a 1-year point actually has any bearing on performance. Most people would just rather grab a coffee with their manager, go and sit in a little breakout room or in Costa Coffee down the road and feel like they're having a genuine chat around what's next, where are the opportunities, what might be, what can they learn, what advice can they be given, because it feels more authentic and genuine rather than, we're just doing this because you've got to fill in the right boxes of the form, upload it on the system, tick, I'm all right. Because when the performance police come, I've got it uploaded and it's in there. So, as a leader, make your conversations genuine and real. If you need to play the game and fill a form in afterwards, do it. But your team members need to feel like it's a genuine conversation.
And also, it should be led from the team members as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And equally, if your team members aren't interested in progressing and developing and being the future of the business, let's not force them. Let's say to them, if you're happy doing what you're doing, keep doing a great job. Keep going with the motivation that you bring into the table right now. Thank you very much. We should be appreciating that and recognizing that, not demotivating people by saying you have to do more. You have what's next? Well, you've got to think of something. We've kind of got to make it personal. I think the second one is have a little look at the Gallup 12. So the Gallup 12 has got some nice research behind it. If you want a little bit of kind of data, a little bit of kind of context behind, the whole motivation and engagement piece. And if you look at the Gallup 12, it'll give you the 12 questions. 12 questions that you could be talking. You don't have to do it as a survey. 12 questions that you could be talking about with your team members in those conversations, with the coffee, at the water cooler, over lunch, whatever. That will start to give you a much clearer level of engagement than any survey will give you. You could also start to ask some of those and explore some of those questions in a team environment, in a team meeting. Get a bit of discussion going. You will get much more of an insight. You'll be able to follow up with questions much more than a survey would. If you do have surveys, I think number 3, a lot of organizations do have surveys. As a leader, it's your responsibility to bring it to life and make it meaningful. You've asked people, or your organization has asked people for their input. If you can get results from that survey for your team or for your function or for your department, even if the rest of the organization isn't doing it, you've got an opportunity to talk about it more, dig deeper, ask for additional feedback. Because if you do nothing, the intent to motivate will go the opposite way. I've given my views, I've given my opinions. Not all the results are great, but they're just being buried under the carpet. I'm not going to bother in future.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, great conversations, Gallup 12, and making sure if you are doing a survey, you're bringing it to life and making it meaningful.
Yeah, follow up on the questions and follow up on people. Love that. Thank you, Shaun. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. If you've been and joined us, thank you for joining us. And this will obviously be here on LinkedIn forever. I will download and record it and send it. And it will be there for you to listen on Spotify and YouTube. Next one is next week with Josh, who has worked in the military, worked in elite sports. And we're talking about how he manages stress, which is going to be really cool. And the things he's learned from extreme cases. Really looking forward to that, as you can imagine with my background. But yeah, back to this. Thanks, Shaun, again. Really great conversation about engagement. Overall, I think that's probably the term for today, right? Engagement and how we get the best out of our people. So really appreciate it. Shaun, where can people find you?
So I'm on social media, so Instagram at Inspire Ignite, obviously LinkedIn, Shaun Beck, and the website is inspire-ignite.com. Or just ping me a note, ping me a message on LinkedIn, and yeah, happy to chat, happy to explore, happy to send bits and pieces out if anything is of interest to anyone.
There you are, perfect. And same here. If anybody's listening and wants to ask me any questions, please do. Until next time, have a great week. Thank you. See you later.
Take care.